that is a time of what we call the Cold War, and they would like to have a place for themselves in the Middle East, because the Middle East was a colony for the British and the French, and they would like to have a place for them in this area. And that's why they are helping Egypt by giving machines, engineering, and some tools. But the money, all of it comes from the Suez Canal, and the workers were Egyptian. That was the national project of the period or the decade of the 60s, and we succeed to finish it by the year 1970, 1971. It had been soft opening for usage and controlling the water at the flood of the River Nile. The Russians who are helping Egypt, they succeed to transfer and changing the regime in Egypt from being monarch and republic system to become a communist system. And Egypt was a communist country starting from the year 1956 till the year 1979, when we have the second president, Muhammad Anwar Sadat, the one who changing Egypt to become a capitalism and open free market. When we build the High Dam, we have, as I'm saying, 24 tunnels, and we have 12 turbines, Russian-made. Those turbines are controlling and rotated by what we call the waterfall from those tunnels and those gates, and it generates electricity. So we have 12 turbines, each one generates 175,000 kilowatt per hour. 175,000 kilowatt per hour, that is each turbine. So by this way we have enough electricity to supply the land of Egypt with electricity. Before we got the High Dam, we have only between 38 to 40% of the houses and the streets in Egypt is illuminated by electricity. But now we have 98% of the houses and the streets because of the High Dam. The power supplies, we have it from the High Dam, it covered 80% or 85% of our supplies. Between 80 to 85% of our power supplies is coming from the next project we are going to stop at it, and we called it under the name of the High Dam. All those were advantage of building the dam. It saved Egypt from the flood, giving Egypt enough electricity. We have two different kind of cultivation season, summertime and winter time. Also, it helping Egypt to, save during what we called the hydration and the famine period in Africa in the last 20 years. Those are advantage. But to be honest, as we have advantage, we have disadvantage. The first disadvantage is there is no more silt coming with the river Nile to the land of Egypt. So the land of Egypt had been transferred from desert to become a green land because of the flood of the river Nile. Now there is no more flood, there is no more silt, and that's why we are using chemicals to fertilize our land. And that's why we're asking you kindly in the beginning of our tour, try to avoid vegetables and fruits because it got some chemicals and your stomach will be sensitive against those chemicals. That's first. Second, we got like nets, not allowing any kind of fish or something like that to cross the gates of the dam, and by this way we have no much fish in the river Nile. And when they have a fish, it became like a very small size fish, and that's what we call the tilapia fish, and it is not big enough to become like a source of fishing for the people who would like to fish in the river Nile. That is the second one. The third one is the area behind the dam, which had been created by the water of the dam. We call it under the name of Nasser Lake. It is almost something like 5 kilometers long. Half of it in the Egyptian territory, half of it in the Sudanian territory. That's why we in Sudan, we are taking benefit of this water. But the problem is, in this area, it covered and submerged the land behind it. So by this way, all the land of Nubia had been covered with this water, where the gold mines, where the ancient Egyptian temples and tombs, and where the Nubian people were living. And now there is no more place for the Nubian people to live in the south of the High Dam, and that's why the Egyptian government are pushing them and immigrating them out from their motherland, and they scattered in an area 120 kilometers to the north of the dam, starting from Aswan to Kumambu. The area where the temple we visited yesterday, that is the territory of the modern Ninoba. They called it the modern Ninoba, and that is the places of the Nubian people where they live now and settled now. The temples where exist in this area have been submerged under the water, and we have a campaign or a mission to save those temples. They were something like 42 temples. We succeed to save only 17. And the rest submerged under the water, and of course the water destroyed all of it. One of those temples which had been saved, it is the temple which we are going to visit today, and we called it under the name of Philae Temple. And the second famous one, the one which we called it Abu Simbel, and that is with the optional tour I speak with you about it before. We have another 17 temples like Abu Simbel and Philae had been saved by the time of between 1960 to the year 1968, and the rest are submerged and sinking under the water. I will excuse you for a minute. I will go down to the ticket office here to get the tickets of these places.